Soccer Today is powered by Spin Media. From podcast to video production, visit spinmediadigitalsolutions.com and bring your content to the next level.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Dwayne Rollins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. I'm Kev Laramie, and on today's show, we will be looking at LAFC, our new overlord of Major League Soccer, Supporter Shield winner for 2022. We will look at some of the key numbers heading into their last game of the regular season. Next weekend, it is decision day across MLS, and we will look at some of the key matchup that will be taking place on Wednesday evening and also on Sunday afternoon. On today's show, we will also be looking at Victor Wanyama and his statistics with the Montreal team. Now being official that he will not be back with the team next season, we will look at how this evolved and how his contribution for CF Montreal since joining the team has led to the success of the team this year. And we will also look at the standings and the favorite, according to the bookmakers, heading into the weekend for Supporter Shield. Of course, that's decided. So for MLS Cup, is it too late? Is there still some value, or is the boat long gone? Those are some of the great topics we will be talking about tonight as we start looking at Los Angeles Football Club, LAFC, Supporter Shield winners. They are guaranteed to finish on top of that Supporter Shield standings. Here are their numbers with one game left to play this season. 67 points after 33 games, a point per game average of 2.03, a record of 21 wins, 8 losses and 4 draws, 66 goal for, 37 goals against, for a differential of 29 plus 29. And a very impressive record at home, 13-1-2 at Bank of California Stadium in LA. On the road, a maybe disappointing record. This could have been a record-breaking season even if a few victories were achieved on the road. A 8-7-2 record on the road for LAFC. They will guarantee to finish first. Philly and Montreal are second and third in that race, but it's not a race anymore because the winner has been announced. But looking at LAFC, clearly the odds-on favorite to win MLS Cup. 3 are the odds. 3.00 are the odds for LAFC to win MLS Cup according to different bookmakers. Philadelphia Union is second with 5.00, followed by Montreal at 9.00. Then the rest of the teams, a couple like NYCFC, Austin, and others are at 13. So people think, or odds makers believe Los Angeles FC will be the champions in the confetti, not only for the regular season, but also for the playoffs. And MajorLeagueSoccer.com, MLSsoccer.com, has published an article earlier today that is quite interesting for people like me. And when I say people like me, I mean statisticians, of course, but also someone who loves sports and love numbers. And of course, if you have been a long-time listener of this show, you know that now I'm a sports statistician working with TV Sport for the last 2 years on soccer, on the broadcast of CF Montreal games. And those numbers that we'll be following on this segment regarding LAFC are very interesting, because they also give you an analysis of them, and I'm going to read through some of the parts of the article to give you an idea of what I look like, what I look for, what I research when I get things ready for a weekend, but also just for my personal knowledge. Let's go. And this is an article that was written earlier today on MLSsoccer.com by Joseph Lowry. You can follow Joseph on Twitter at Joe C. Lowry. And here is the title of the article. It's called Why LAFC May Just Win MLS Cup. 5 key stats explained. So let's just jump to the first stat. The first one. It's 0.69 expected goal differential per game. No team in MLS has a better expected goal differential per game than LAFC. According to American Soccer Analysis, LAFC outcreate their opponents at the highest rate in the league, which certainly bodes well for them in the postseason, especially on a one-off game when one moment of creation can be the difference between winning or losing a playoff game. The article continues saying, per American Soccer Analysis, the Philadelphia Union 0.60 and New York City FC 0.57 are relatively close behind LAFC's 0.69 expected goal differential. Still, LAFC are in the top spot, and when you look at their squad, it's easy to see why. In the attack, Vela, 12 goals, 11 assists, and Christian Arango, 16 goals, 5 assists, are both in the top 20 players in terms of expected goals and actual goals in 2022. Vela is also in the top 10 when it comes to expected assists and key passes. With all of their attacking talent, LAFC make it extremely difficult for opposing defenses to deal with them in the open field. However, expected goal differential isn't all about attacking, it's also about your ability to defend well and limit your opponent's chances. The second statistic that Joseph Lowry talks about in that article that does highlight the great potential of LAFC in the playoffs, but also of Montreal, so bear with me. It goes as follows. Speaking of defending, LAFC have some excellent defensive numbers this year. Per American Soccer Analysis, they're second in all of MLS in expected goals allowed per game with 1.05. The only team in front of them, you're asking? Well, that is CF Montreal with 1.05, with an edge in the thousandth of a point here for the place over in the Eastern Conference. So that means LAFC are the Western Conference best team when it comes to limiting their opponent's chances, which means Montreal is actually the best in the East for that. Part of that is due to their strong defensive structure, where Cherundolo uses a 4-3-3 with good spacing and effective counter-pressing per second spectrum. LAFC have allowed the second least open play expected goal per 90 in transition this year, only behind Nashville Soccer Club at 0.24. That speaks to their solidity even in difficult defensive situations. So that is the second statistic that does give an edge to LAFC, even if you only get double your money at this point on top of your original bet, betting LAFC at 3-0-0 on most of your favorite sports books. It might be still worth some value, as you will not have your money tied up for too long and you might actually get some benefit out of it. Third statistic, according to MLSsoccer.com, Joseph Lowry, for LAFC's probable win of MLS Cup. 0.08 expected goal allowed per shot. You thought I was done talking about the defense, didn't you? Not quite, he says. One other important defensive trend that stands out when you look at through LAFC's numbers is the low quality shots they allow. According to Second Spectrum, which I do not have access, so I'm glad that MLS is putting some of them on here, opposing teams only average 0.08 expected per shot against LAFC. That number is the second lowest in MLS. only behind Gary Smith's Nashville team, which is 0.07. So far in 2022, teams have only taken 82 shots from the middle of the penalty box against LAFC, which is the fewest in MLS. Because opposing teams really struggle to break into the 18-yard box and fire off dangerous shots, they're often forced to take low-quality shots from distance. And as a coach or as a defender, those are the kind of shots that you can live with. Moving on to Arango's 0.39 expected goal per 90 minutes, which means he scores 0.4 goals every 90 minutes, which means every 2 games or a little bit more than every 2 games he scores a goal. Which if you go to the playoff and the playoff run of maximum 4 games, could bring you 2 goals, depending if you bring the efficiency a little high, that could be interesting. But when I look at Arango, I do believe he might be the key for success for LA. As we continue, flipping back over to the attack, LAFC have one of the best number 9s in all of MLS, Arango. Arango's goal-scoring ability will be a huge part of his team's MLS Cup campaign. According to Second Spectrum, Arango is the 99th percentile in MLS this year in open play, expected goal per 90 among players with at least 1,000 minutes. He moves into good spots in the box, takes a ton of shots, and crucially forces defenders to take their eyes off of Vela, Gareth Bale, Dennis Bouanga, and Christian Cello, and the rest of LAFC's offensive core. When you look back through the last 5 MLS Cup winners, all 5 of them had at least one double-digit goal scorer in the regular season, which tells me the favorites are LAFC Montreal. Anyways, Arango with his 16 goals in MLS this year, along with Vela's 12s, check the scoring box for LAFC. And then we will look at the last statistic before we move on another topic for today's show. Before I get into, this is still Joseph Lowry's article available on MLSsoccer.com, why LAFC may just win MLS Cup, 5 key stats explained. This is stat number 5. Jose Cifuentes, 4.37 goals added. Before I get into how incredibly good Jose Cifuentes has been for LAFC in 2022, I should define goals added. Developed by the wonderful folks over at American Soccer Analysis, goals added G+, measures a player's total contribution to a game or a season by calculating how each of their touches changes their team's chances of scoring and conceding. So if you're helping your team create chances in the attack and limit chances at the other end, you're going to be pretty high up on the G+ rankings. Cifuentes, LAFC's Ecuadorian international midfielder, is 3rd in all of MLS this year in G+, with 4.37. The 2 players ahead of him, 2022 Landon Donovan MLS MVP favorite Hani Mokhtar, who has 5.55 goals added, and last year's MVP Carles Gil with 4.55 goals added. Cifuentes doesn't spend as much time pulling the strings in the attack as Mokhtar or Gil, but he does a fantastic job of progressing the ball and making game, changing runs into the box. Per Football Reference, Cifuentes is in the 88th percentile among midfielders in MLS this year in progressive carries and the 94th of successful dribbles. He gets the ball from point A to point B quickly and reliably. Defensively, he's in the 87th percentile in dribblers tackled and in the 88th for pressures. So Cifuentes does so much of the dirty work for LAFC with his mobility, with Sanchez's distribution. It's going to be very difficult for teams to stop LAFC in the playoffs. And I think the only team that can stop LAFC in the playoffs, and that is me adding on to it, that is Montreal, that could be LAFC's opponent in the finals on MLS Cup on November 5th. Very interesting. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about Victor Wanyama and the big news that was not necessarily a well-kept secret that was announced yesterday.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And we're back on Soccer Today as we thank our Patreon who helped support the creation of this show at patreon.com/2solitudes. Let's talk about Victor Wanyama, who announced yesterday after training with CF Montreal that he will not be back with the club next season. The designated player will have played 3 seasons with the Montreal outfit, playing as of today 79 games. It will be his 80th on Sunday on decision day versus Miami. 77 start. It will be his 70th if he starts on Sunday. 5 goals, 7 assists in the regular season, a passing accuracy average of around 86% with CF Montreal since joining the club. This season, he tops Montreal in a couple of different categories. It's been a battle between him and Rudy Camacho in the recoveries for CF Montreal. Victor Wanyama tops the team right now with 299, followed by Camacho with 297. Waterman is third, Miller fourth, and Johnston to give you an overview of the top 5 better players in the recovery department for Montreal. One statistic that I think is important to look at when we look at Victor Wanyama's work in Montreal is his amount of tackles in the midfield. 56 tackles from Montreal this season. One of the best for Montreal so far this year. When we look at also the efficiency, he's one of the best in the team. He's one of the best also to put players under pressure when it comes into the midfield. Those are all things that he's able to do over the last few years. Of course, his offensive contribution was not necessarily the big reason why he was brought into Montreal to begin with. It was maybe a bit of a lackluster. One thing that was maybe a sign of worry at the beginning, it was the amount of games played by him with his injury history over in London with Tottenham. We're seeing actually longevity with Victor Wanyama since joining Montreal. He played 21 games in 2020, 27 in 2022 and 2021, and 31 so far in 2022. Injuries have not been a problem for Victor Wanyama, and that is a positive aspect. Now, going forward, what is to think about his stay with the CF Montreal? I think it all depends of how this year finishes. If Montreal finishes on November 5th in the Confettis, well, I guess it gives you a very, very successful time for Victor Wanyama in Montreal. I think we're already seeing the end of this current project for CF Montreal in multiple ways. The snowflakes going away at the end of the season to the happiness of a lot of people probably listening. One thing that is also going to change is Victor Wanyama will not be back. Georgi Mihailovic will not be back. We'll also probably not have Ismael Kone back next season. Who knows? Ramel Kyoto might also be on a window being shopped around after scoring over 15 goals in a season for the first time in his career. And that is pretty rare in the history of teams in MLS. Again, the last 3 MLS Cup winners have had a goal scorer of over 10 goals. So that is a positive sign for CF Montreal heading to the playoffs, which they will. And there's a very fair probability they will be facing Miami or maybe even teams like Columbus if they can squeak in, but I kind of think that it will be Miami, which leads a very interesting situation heading into decision day for Montreal, heading into the first round of playoff. Miami's actually playing tonight, and Miami can clinch a playoff spot tonight with a win over Orlando. Orlando can clinch a playoff spot with a win over Miami, and they also need the Columbus to lose at Charlotte, because tonight it's the restart or just a continuation of the game that was canceled earlier this year between Charlotte and Columbus. This matchup was originally began on July 30th, and it was canceled at the 16th minute. It was tied 0-0. It will recommence with the same players on the field and the substitutes available. And this is according to the 2022 MLS match delay, postponement, cancellation, and forfeiture policy. But 2 games tonight that could influence the result of the playoffs and also influence who's going to play whom in the MLS Cup playoffs first round. Montreal so far would face against Miami. New York City would face Orlando, and New York would face Cincinnati. That could change. It did change recently as New York City overtook New York for the 3rd spot in the Eastern Conference. Speaking of New York City FC, their first match, either against Orlando or another team, will not take place at Yankee Stadium, will also not take place at Citi Field. Yes, NYCFC will play at Red Bulls Arena once again in a playoff situation as a host team in the stadium of their biggest rivals. The Red Bulls are going to make money off of New York City's FC like a stadium by renting Red Bull Arena to them for playoffs. Why not? Why not have your cake and eat it too if you are the Red Bulls? So I do believe Montreal has a lot to look forward to this offseason as a new project start for the foreseeable future, with possibility of new names coming in. Don't expect big names, don't expect designated players, expect younger players that could give you a lot for a few years. That's what we've been exposed to. That's what we should, anticipate going forward. So, speaking of going forward, not only are there games today, there's of course a big decision day on Sunday. And maybe this will be the last show before Sunday. We'll see if it's possible for me to do another show until then. Of course, I'm going to be a father soon, so that's always in the background. There's a possibility where I'm going to go radio silent for a while, and that's because that means the baby has come. We'll see. But follow my Twitter feed at Kev Laramie for more details on this situation. Orlando City, and by the way, if you're wondering, and that's why the video component for now, I'm not quitting on video. Just it's a lot of work for the video to put to the standard that I love, and I do not have that time right now with my professional work, and it's a MLS playoffs, and I've been very occupied by also making sure that I take time for myself. So it's been a juggling of sort, and thank you for following our great coverage here on Soccer Today, and follow myself at Kev Laramie and continue this beautiful journey, probably less often than what we're used to and a bit more audio than before. One day maybe we'll have a weekly show on the YouTube page, which thank you for subscribing to the YouTube page. You will have the podcast on the YouTube page in the meantime for sure with no problem. Let's just have a look at what Decision Day means for next week. Let's go for now as we start to think about the end of this season. Coffee is a necessity, at least in my line of work. All right, on Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, that is the Eastern Conference time slot for Decision Day. Orlando Columbus, 2:30. Of course, all the games are at 2:30. Orlando Columbus, that could be for a playoff spot. The winner could go in and the loser could be out. That's very interesting. Chicago and New England, that's an interesting aspect here. Two teams that have been eliminated, that are playing for nothing, that might see a whole lot of changes this offseason. Chicago and New England finishing the season against each other. It's like the league knew that this would mean nothing. The Red Bulls are facing Charlotte. The Red Bulls are, of course, in search of points to maybe get that third spot back in the Eastern Conference. DC Cincinnati, that's an interesting one. Philly Toronto, a game that means a whole lot for Philly to finish top of the East. With a win, Philly finishes top. With a loss, Philly would finish second if Montreal wins. Montreal could finish top of the Eastern Conference with a win regardless of the result in Philly and Toronto, and that is because Philly lost last week. Atlanta, NYCFC, a game that will mean a lot for NYCFC as they are fighting for that third spot, but a game that could be known as the last game of Josef Martinez's career in Major League Soccer, or Atlanta. One of those two scenarios are going to happen. Game on October 9th against NYCFC will be Josef Martinez's last game with Atlanta United. Mark my words, mark your calendar. After a successful bicycle last week that saw Josef Martinez dazzle the entire league, one last time will he be performing for the Five Stripes? And can they play spoilers in NYCFC's run at third place? The Flamingos against CF Montreal on Sunday at the Drive Pink Stadium. Will Montreal get another result, another win on the road? It's quite impressive. When I look, and I'm going to actually look at the stat right now, so while I talk, I'm actually looking for something else too. When I look at Montreal's, I would say, record on the road, it's really impressive. They have won 6 straight road games. They have won since July 23rd. They have won against DC on July 23rd, 2-1. Columbus on August 3rd, 2-1. They won against the Houston Dynamo on August 13th, 3-2. And then Chicago, 2-0. At Soldier Field on August 27th. And then September 4th, they won 4-3 against TFC. Again, September 17th, they won 1-0 against New England. That is 6 straight road win. An MLS record that's only been done once before, and that is in and now I forgot the year. I knew it by heart. 2005. With San Jose Earthquakes and Landon Donovan. I'm not sure that he might have been in Everton, but I know Dwayne Rosario was there. So that's a new record that Montreal could beat this weekend on Sunday with a 7 straight road win. That has never been done before. Montreal has a shot at it, and that's what it's all about. This could be Victor Wanyama's last road game with Montreal. Montreal will come home now, will have home field advantage for at least one game. If they win, they can also have it for the next round. Those are going to be impressive aspect of this great Montreal season. But we're going to get ready. It's going to be a big decision day, and there's a mini decision day tonight. We'll probably be back. I'll probably be back on the airways here to break down those games very soon. And yes, an announcement will follow, as not as many video shows. Frankly, I won't have the time to build this show for 4 hours times per day. With the baby and with continuing everything, I will do my best to do as many audio podcasts as we can and here as I can. And moving forward, hopefully we can all agree to just enjoy this beautiful playoffs that are coming. Until next time, as always, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.